अरे याद है याद है भाई तो कोई तुम्हारे फोन में बात है तुम फोन छोड़ लिया लौटो बस याद दिला ना लेना आईफोन 11 चल भी एकदम आईफोन 11 पे बचाएंगे आ स्टेशन नहीं आ रहा है हां स्टेशन नहीं आ रहा वही दो दिन तो आए नहीं अरे कैसा अरे इस पर इसका जो नाम है तो सही है नाम देखते हैं सिविक्स स्टार्ट करें ना अपना एग्जाम जो कोर्स हुआ तो एक ही चांस पे हुआ है सिविक्स एक ही आ हम लोगों का सिर्फ डेमोक्रेसी हुआ है और मुझे ये हुआ था अभी सिर्फ अभी लास्ट बार में कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल डिजाइन चाहिए खत्म भी हो गया अभी मिनट है जो हमारे छोड़नी पड़ती सातवां लाइन का क्या बोलते समझ सकते इसमें तो और भी समझते स्मॉल खराब है वॉशरूम में लाइट से वो है वॉशरूम के लिए कौन क्लास ये जाता भी नहीं गया भी नहीं भी बात गया एक बार गया एक दो बार गया कोई यहां पर ना अरे हाल खत्म तो किसी भी साथ है क्यों वो कुत्ता में जा खड़ा कर रहा है देखिए ना आप ही कर रहे हैं और एक बंदे लेवल 2 आते हैं लेकिन सर क्या इस मामले में ये न्यूमेरिकल सारे आते हैं मुझे नहीं मुझे लेवल 1 करना कौन सा है इस मामले में लेवल 2 होगा यार ये भी कैलकुलेशन सराउंडिंग से होगा अब ये भी फोर्स एंड लॉस क्वेश्चन का लेवल 2 ना सराउंडिंग हुआ सराउंडिंग से नहीं किया मैंने तो ये प्रॉब्लम है बनाइए यार नीचे जाना क्या हो गया टाइम कुछ हो गया 22 हां 4:30 बजे तो पता है क्या 4:30 बजे तक चल रहा है 5 मिनट तो क्या मिलेगा आपको यहां पे शॉर्ट सीट नहीं आती है अच्छा वो 10 8 मिनट वाले वो की वो छगने लेते हैं अगर आपको कुछ जरूरत सबको अभी 5 मिनट में टाइम 5:20 को लेकर शुरू होता है यहां बोल लूं तो आपको आपके लिए नहीं करना से क्योंकि जाके भी कर देंगे मैक्सिमम तो वही करता है क्या फुल 25 का 4 बजे वाला ये जल्दी आता है कैसे निकलता है कितने मिनट और 70 परफेक्ट 10 मिनट नहीं 10 मिनट पहुंचता है 10 मिनट 8 मिनट तो कितने मिनट निकल मैं रोज ट्राई करता हूं कोई एक निकल लिए 426 क्या तो पहले 4 बजे बैठता हूं 4:30 में तो 4 बजे जाता हूं ज्वाइन नहीं करती इसके बाद ये बीएस के यार तेज ना पहले हम लोग मोराली ट्यूशन जाते थे हम लोग एक साथ चलते थे बहुत उठा था ये पेडल से एक सिद्धार्थ वाईफाई तो बंद किया था मतलब पहले क्यों बंद किया बैठ करते थे 1% और नीचे वो नहीं समझ देखे ऐसी लगता है मास्टर दादा लेवल 2 है तो पता है ना और भी और का लेवल 2 है एक तो देखो तो गूगल मारने वाला है ये तो टॉप मारा
कैसे मारते हैं ये
स्टार्टिंग कैसे हुई इसको पता है क्या 8 है वो तो हंसा क्यों है बाजी इसमें हंसा क्यों टीवी से हंसा क्यों
अरे नहीं अरे वो स्कूल पढ़ना है ना
वो हंस लेगा
अरे वो जान के से रहता है बहुत बार किया क्या लिख रहे हो
वो नीचे रख
वो इस तरह से
वो उस वीडियो में क्लियर यूज होता है दैट उसके
वेरी मच इन एब्सोल्युटली
वो नीचे करो जी क्या मेरी बात नहीं सुनी
oh my gosh oh my gosh oh my gosh
अभी देखिए आप क्या करेंगे
तो क्या कर रहे फोन तो नहीं कर रहे
पंजाब में
अभी लगभग सारे स्टार्ट ही होता है
को ब्लॉक किया
आराम है
आईते पर
ईश इधर
पासवर्ड देखने में आने को पासवर्ड देख तो बाद में कर लेना
ये मेरा मैसेज पढ़ता है
तो
आई जो
आराम है
तो सामने हाइपर मैसेज
हैं बख्शिश जा कर दो
और इसकी
चलो
बोलना इसकी वो इसको
क्या
कौन जानते हैं रिसर्च प्रैक्टिस रिस्पॉन्स
डोनाल्ड इम्पोर्टेंट है जैसे ये तो जूता है साले चमड़े खुद का भी नहीं मारा
सबको पीछे
उसको ही
अरे यार मानो कॉलेज में पढ़ाई दरवाजे पर खड़ी दरवाजे ये रहता है ना वो अब लाइक
हम इधर बाद में तो बना दीजिए
अरे एक ही रहेगा तो भी
नहीं उस दिन लास्ट वीक में आता ही है तू आया लास्ट वीक
पानी पूरी खा लिया
आया
बराबर तो कॉलेज से
फ्राइडे से आया
फ्राइडे
आर्टिकल से बोलनी थी
यार ना तुम्हें पता है सर का फेयरवेल हो गया
क्या
सर का फेयरवेल हो गया
कौन से?
और पहले पोर्शन खत्म हो गया
हां तू नहीं था उस दिन
नहीं मंडे को लेंगे
केमिस्ट्री को क्या था
खत्म
केमिस्ट्री
पूरा
एग्जाम नहीं होगा
लेक्चर चलो खत्म आज लेक्चर खत्म केमिस्ट्री
हम लोग भी उस दिन किया क्वेश्चन आंसर भी हो गया एनसीईआरटी के भी हो गया रिव्यू क्वेश्चन
रिव्यू कुछ नहीं होगा बैठ के 2 घंटे का पीरियड था 2 घंटे का पीरियड था
अभी केमिस्ट्री
नहीं होगा असली बायो का फिजिक्स हो गया
अभी कल खत्म हो गया फिर लेक्चर भी
ओ काउंट चल डाल
मुझे मैथ्स था
चाहे कोई सीख करके
इस बार कौन सा चैप्टर है
या 9 चैप्टर है हमारे
हाँ सब लोग एक जैसे बैठे रहते हो ये क्या है कम दिस साइड एक एक इधर आ जा रहने दो मतलब तुम मेरे घर पे घूमने आए हो रहने
वैसे
दो
ऐसे मतलब वो कैमरा के वैसे बीच से दिखता नहीं
कैमरा कौन सा कैमरा तुमको
ये
देख
सामने आपके ऊपर
जो
वो
लिखता है
बड़ा
दिखता है नहीं है जैसे क्लियर दिखता है
हां
पूरी गोल्ड का भी अच्छा है
क्योंकि मैं साहब जहां पर बीच में लिखता है वहां पर कॉर्नर में नहीं
ये बेटर नहीं हुआ
नीरज उधर से उठ इधर आ फटाफट पवन पवित्र
मैं भी आ गया था मैं
तुम इधर बैठोगे पवित्र इधर बैठेगा एंड यू कम दिस साइड आर्या को आपसे बोर्ड दिखना है उसका बोर्ड देखने दो
मैम
एंगल तुम बोर्ड का मिला रहे हो कि इन लोगों के साथ मिला रहे हो
अरे सब चीजों का मिला
मार्क्स अगर कम आए ना तो
हमसे बेटर ही
उधर जा
उधर से इधर का नहीं
तुमको कहाँ देखना है इधर?
इधर
मैं बहुत चालाकी कर रहा हूँ।
तुमको तो आने के लिए बोला नहीं था मैंने।
सच्ची में अच्छा दिख रहा
अरे उधर जाओ, उसको तुम अकेले छोड़ के नहीं आ सकते, उधर जाओ।
है भाग गया भाई
कुत्ते का
कोई एक होनहार बच्चा है इस क्लास में।
नाम
तुम्हारा नाम अभी तक मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा।
कोहली।
विराट कोहली के क्या लगते हो तुम?
चाचा। मतलब मेरे चाचा लगते
वही मुझे लगा कि तुम्हारा भी उम्र निकल गया है पढ़ाई लिखाई करने का,
हैं। मेरे चाचा लगते हैं।
इसलिए तुम्हारा ध्यान ही नहीं है पढ़ाई।
अरे
Now, what was the last topic we were studying? Improvement, and what was that? The other day we studied about manure and
Fertilizers. We finished for
fertilizers. So that part we are already done. The last section of the chapter, that I think 2 more topics are there. Give me one of this. One of you give me a book.
हम तो उसको पीछे दोनों शेयर
उसको तुम बुक दे दो, नोटबुक दे दो, इंसाइक्लोपीडिया दे दो, कुछ भी दे दो, उसको वैसे भी पढ़ाई नहीं करना है। You take your notebook. तुम्हारा नोटबुक नहीं लाए, then you take your
नोटबुक नहीं लाए शेयर बुक है।
नीरज।
you take your volume, you will have to underline. अच्छा, never mind. ये तुम्हारा second volume है। हाँ, open. पेज नंबर, turn to page, कौन सा पेज है बताओ? कौन सा पेज है बताओ?
147.
So now next is the other day we were also talking about the concept of how to make the land productive, how to apply different types of nutrients, and the nutrients can be of 2 forms, that is manure and fertilizer. Now straight away we move on to a concept of organic farming. 147. Now we are talking about organic farming, a term that quite often you have heard about. Organic farming. What is the definition of organic farming? What is organic farming? Can you give me 2 examples of crops or fruits that we consume nowadays, which are done by organic farming? वैसे तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा fruits crops जो आजकल हमारे घर पे आ रहा है, most of them are organic farming. But yes, no, but still, if you visit the vegetable vendor, if I talk about the vegetable vendor, a variety of different type of crops they would keep, and they would have freshly grown crops. They would have crops grown with the help of fertilizers also, and they would keep organic organic products also. Can you tell me one major feature? How do we understand which are crops or fruits made by organic farming? Can we understand by looking at them? Can we understand by looking at them whether the crop, the different type of crops? Say, suppose I talk about brinjal, I talk about cauliflower, I talk about banana, I talk about any other type of a crop, ginger, etc., etc. They would say, that this is organic farming. Take it. How do we understand? Do we understand that whether it is with the help of fertilizer or without the fertilizer? Can we understand? आता है समझ में? Yes. आता है समझ में? हाँ, actually आता है समझ में. Now maybe you have not noticed so far. You must not be visiting the vegetable vendors also. So when we get to see that, yes, we can understand, because if I talk about a crop where, if I talk about, say, suppose the potatoes and the cauliflower and the cabbages and the ladyfinger and all these, if fertilizers have been used, they would look quite bigger in size, because you already understand by the process of by the usage of fertilizer, the process of growth becomes much faster. Growth becomes much more, is not so. But as I said, the farmer has 2 plots of land. एक plot में, in one part of the land, he is growing cauliflowers with manure. And in another part, he is growing cauliflowers with fertilizer. Kisme growth zyada hoga? With fertilizer. And the size of the cauliflower, kisme zyada hoga? Fertilizer wala. Then which is more nutritive to eat? The one which is grown much bigger and looking much fresh, or the one which is comparatively smaller looking and still fresh looking? Which one should we prefer to buy? The one which is small. So in the market also we always come across cauliflowers जो इतने बड़े-बड़े होते हैं. Very clearly understood that they are grown by the fertilizers. And if I talk about the one which is grown either by organic farming or by manure, they will not be that big. They will be comparatively smaller. But the nutrient level will be high. So far the taste will be much better in this one, which is smaller, because it is grown with all natural products. What is the meaning of organic farming? The process of growing crops with minimal usage of fertilizers. Process of growing crops with minimal usage of fertilizer. So that is what is known as organic farming. Can we write one or two benefits of organic farming? Yes. If I talk about the crops and the vegetables and the grains grown by the method of organic farming, they are having large amount of nutrients. Do they have toxic chemical substances in them? No, they don't have. Especially when we talk about the high amount of nitrogen, phosphorus and all. No, they don't have unnecessary high amounts. Then next is when we are talking about the concept of irrigation. Now, here again we are trying to understand, okay, for the process of growth of crops, the nutrients are very much necessary, either in the form of fertilizers, manure, or say organic farming. At the same time, when we are talking about should the soil have adequate amount of water for the growth of crops? Yes. The soil should have adequate amount of water for the growth of crops. And what is the method of watering the land known as? The method of watering the land is known as irrigation. What is irrigation? The method of watering the land. At the same time, say suppose I have started preparing my land where I want to grow some maybe some pumpkins. But I don't have much idea that how much of the water should be there in the soil. I have one plot of land for pumpkins and the other plot of land for some beans to grow, some peanuts to grow. Should we use the same amount of water in all the three types of crops? For all the three types of pumpkin is there, beans there, and peanuts there. So three different sections of the land I have. Should I use the same amount of water for all the three crops? No. Every type of a plant, every type of a fruit requires just an adequate amount of water for the best growth. Is it something like that the flower plant that we have in our windowsills, we put a large amount of water every day? Are they going to flourish? Are they going to grow that better? No. Quite a number of times now that for the monsoon also you must have observed, some of your plants are growing so fast. And some of the plants have become stagnant, rather the leaves have started yellowing. No, even though there is so much of water, we generally would feel that now that there is water, the plants should all grow now. But yes, it is also very much true that there are certain plants, the moment there is too much of water in the soil, the roots start getting rotted, the roots cannot absorb water, and the leaves start getting yellowy. The leaves start getting rolled, the leaves start getting yellow, and the plant starts dying out. So what do we understand? Every particular plant requires just an adequate amount of water. So what are the different methods of irrigation? Let us see. What are some of the different methods of irrigation? See there the different methods. Number one is wells. Could you see that? The first type of method. Wells are the wells. You understand? Near the farmland, various different type of small wells are always there, and the wells would be nothing but a small reservoir of water, and when the land is little bit dry, they would sprinkle water, put water, so that the land is always moist. The land should always be moist. Next we talk about canals. What do you understand by the word canals? Did you ever see any agricultural land, the entire agricultural land as if has got small passages, no? So now, why those passages? Hey, what happened? वो कुछ तो सोच रहा था, सोचते सोचते कुछ तो you are thinking that you are somewhere else. No, you are thinking that you are at home. हाँ, किसका टेंशन? हाँ, कोई तो टेंशन है, वो तो मैं भी समझ सकती हूँ. He is looking for something.
नहीं, यहाँ पर स्पेस नहीं है इसलिए.
वहाँ पे स्पेस था,
उसके पास लंबे हैं.
तो पैर को घर पे रख के आया करो अगली बार. Now, next is the canals. When we talk about, can you tell me what is the advantage of canals? Why should there be canals in the agricultural land? Canals क्यों होता है? So that now that the water is there, the water should not be exerting any pressure on the plants, but get distributed. पूरा evenly distribute हो जाता है. Distribute हो जाता है. So and it remains also. Canals अगर है तो water runoff नहीं होगा. The water will remain in that canal for a long period of time. The land remains moist. What is the third? River lift. Most of the agricultural land, they would always try to sit properly. Most of the agricultural land, they would always try to prepare the land or have an agricultural land close to some water body, so that on the dry season, when the rainfall is less and etc., they can adequately get water from the nearby river, lake, pond, and keep the land moist every time. River lift. Tanks, what is the meaning of tanks? Again, artificial setup either underground or above the land to store water for future use. No, store water for future use. Take some questions now. These fresh initiatives is a different concept altogether. This will take up later. Or else you can start with some questions of the volume itself. Chalo, we'll try solving some of this. Take some questions, then I'll volume. From the previous part, whatever we have solved, whatever we have completed, turn to page 161. Turn to page 161. 161. Short answers, could you see?
Yes, ma'am.
Short answers. Number 24.
Yes, ma'am.
24, 25.
Yes, ma'am.
Come to the next page. 162.
26.
Next is repeated. Same question. Next is number 29. Next is number 29. Come to the next set of questions, long answers. Come to the next set of questions, long answers. It is the same repeated question. Take out your notebook.
And long answers.
No, long answers, but these are not any favorable question that I can ask you to do. Notebook. Take out your notebook. I'll give you some extra questions which you are going to do. Apart from these two questions that I asked you here in the, you may start with this extra question and I'll give you some additional questions that you will start answering now. You start with the two questions that I already asked you to do from the volume. Three I asked you. Okay, start. Start. Complete those three questions and I will give you some extra that you will try solving.
Not very related here.
हिंदी को लेके
इसको वही चल रहा था तो कोई भी बोल सब लोग तो बोल नहीं तू ही तो मैं नहीं बोला बट मैं सो
मैं 1 मिनट गई नहीं
आते
and whatever I have got 10 things to do at the same time and तुम ऐसे क्यों लास्ट पेज में क्यों लिख रहे हो बुक नहीं है
मैंने अकेले नहीं लाई
तुम अकेले
आरुष ने भी लाई है
अच्छा
ये तीनों बैच
अर्णव ने भी लाई है
हाँ तो 3 बैट 3
नहीं तो तुम क्या सोच के आए थे यहाँ की क्या करने जाना है वहाँ पे
टाइम टेबल नहीं देखी
हाँ
तुम ये खोल के देखना
ओके गेट स्टार्टेड नाउ
यस
फास्ट हाँ 10 मिनट्स में कंप्लीट करना है
हम 3 क्वेश्चन हैं तो क्वेश्चन में सेकंड क्वेश्चन वेट मैं सेकंड advantage मतलब how as the use of fertilizers improve crop production. Yes, giving for fertilizers are used to each fertilizer nutrients of good vegetable growth and giving rise to the healthy and giving rise to healthy plants so there this in this fertilizers. Technical good. What are the application? What are the factors on which irrigation requirement depend? Like what factors?
What are the factors on which irrigation requirement depends? First of all, 2 factors at least you can write. What are you supposed to write down? Every plant, every types of plant will have different water requirements. At the same time, when we are talking about what is the other factor on which the process of irrigation should be dependent on? Irrigation, first of all, I told you what type of plant we are growing. Every type of plant, a specific amount. At the same time, if you are using, what type of nutrient we are using in the soil? Are we using manure? Are we using fertilizer? If you are using fertilizer, then also the amount of the water will be variable. If I talk about that, if you are using manure, then probably we can use little bit more of water. But if you are using fertilizer, we should use just an adequate amount of water, because if excess of water is used on a land where fertilizers are used, then this may also lead to pollution of the nearby water bodies or nearby land, and the fertilizers will be washed away. Too much of irrigation if it happens. Fertilizers, if it washed away, and fertilizers are always fine particles, they are easily washed away. Manures are just like small chunks of soil, no? Will they easily be washed away? No. Manure is just like small chunks. They will remain stuck to the soil. Easily they will not be carried out. Write down. You may write down those points. What I said? What is that question?
What are the factors?
What are the factors on which irrigation of the soil depends on? Write down.
Irrigation requirement depends.
Irrigation requirement, meaning how much of the water to give. On what factors we have to think? Number one, the method of irrigation and amount of water depends on. The method of irrigation and amount of water depends on the type of plants,
The method of irrigation.
the method of irrigation and the type and the amount of water. Method of irrigation and amount of water depends on type of plants. Depends on type of plants that are grown. Number one. For plants like rice, paddy. Next point. For plants.
Rice is not a plant, it's a crop.
Which one? How about these are plants? No, crops, fruits, vegetables, grains. You are talking about plants. These are all plants. For plants like rice, paddy, water logging is required. Water logging is required. Number two, for plants like rice, paddy, water logging is required. Number two, for plants like cotton, beans, pea, etc. Beans, pea, etc. Beans, pea, etc. Adequate amount of water is necessary.
For plants like
Beans, pea, pulses, cotton, all these examples again, right? Beans, pea, pulses, cotton, adequate amount of water is necessary. Adequate amount of water is necessary. And canals can be made. And canals can be made. C-A-N-A-L-S.
Amount of water is
Necessary and canals can be made on the land. And canals can be made on the land. Third, number three, for certain flowering plants with weaker roots, water should not be applied at a greater force. Water should not be applied at a greater force. Water should not be applied at a greater force. Hence, sprinkler system. Sprinkler.
this can be made full.
What I said for certain flowering plants with weaker roots, water should not be supplied at
supplied or applied?
water should not be
Applied.
I said, or supplied.
Applied.
Supplied hoga. Water should not be supplied at a greater force and sprinkler system of, let me finish, you can write from here. And sprinkler system of irrigation. And sprinkler system of irrigation is preferred. Sprinkler system of irrigation. Follow and write. What happened? sprinkler system of irrigation is preferred. So here you are writing at least 3-4 points. What are you writing? If it is a big plant, big tree, you can apply large amount of water. But at the same time, if it is some moderate sized plants, better to have canals in between so that adequate amount of water is there always. At the same time, if you are trying to grow small plants like mint hai, coriander hai, some small flowering plants hai, should you give water at great force? No, if you give water at great force, the roots will all start dying out. Then, did you see in some of these flower gardens, also even in most of our societies, if at all you had observed, there are some sprinkler system of irrigation which keeps on moving in those gardens. Dekha? So in that way, what's happening? Irrigation bhi ho raha hai. The soil is becoming wet and moist also, but there is no pressure on the roots because the plants are so small plants. And that is what is happening for farmlands, jahan pe coriander and spinach and lettuce and all these leaves are grown because roots are small and soft roots. Come to the next question, Karo. What is the next question I gave you?
How has the use of fertilizers improved crop production?
हाँ, फटाफट 2 points लिखना है. हाँ. Fertilizers improve crop production. How? 2 points लिखो. Just 2 points लिखना है. And then once you are done with this, come across with this question. फटाफट.
किसका लिखना है?
Volume questions.
कौन सी क्वेश्चन का?
Volume I had asked no certain questions.
25.
Now, come on, start with this. Start with this.
Video 1 बोलेंगे.
Karo fast. Take the question that you have. Achha, then I'm not giving you to write. You already have that question in your volume. Why is irrigation carried out? Could you see 147? Take that question. You are asked that for 2 to 3 marks. Why is irrigation carried out? Irrigation क्यों चाहिए? Why there should be irrigation? Why should irrigation be carried out? Now see, when I'm talking about here in the coastal areas, a very well developed method of irrigation शायद जरूरी नहीं है. Why? Already we have got 4-5 months of rainfall. Almost roughly 4 months of rainfall तो होता ही है. On top of that, the water bodies are around. So एक well planned method of irrigation की जरूरत नहीं है. But if I talk about the mountainous regions, monsoon ज़्यादा होता है? No, वहाँ पे monsoon भी कम है. Nearby water bodies है, lake, river, sea कुछ है? No. And if I talk about places आसपास जहाँ पे only ocean and sea है, they also need a well planned irrigation system because the sea water is not very much suitable for irrigation. Why? Because the sea and the ocean water has got so much of salt in there. Salt water is not profitable for the process of agriculture because it can kill the roots of the plants. So now that we are talking about that, why well-planned method of irrigation is necessary? Well-planned method of irrigation is necessary so that certain lands which are having very scanty rainfall, say suppose I talk about the north or western part of our country. The northwestern part of our country, something like the states of Punjab and Rajasthan and all these, वैसे तो agricultural produce from हाँ पंजाब में होता है but comparatively less ना if you talk about these regions, comparatively less if I talk about Rajasthan, all throughout the year hardly, yes they may have floods but the rain is not well spread, 2 months 3 months, no, not well spread that way, but they will have heavy rainfall for a period of 15-20 days and they will have floods also. That is extreme. So, but then, अब अगर floods हो रहा है, the water, most of these are all getting wasted out. So, when I talk about the method of irrigation, why necessary, especially for those areas, hilly areas, scanty rainfall areas, so that they can maintain a system जिससे लगभग 6 to 8 months of the year the soil should be moist. So that productive. So at the same time, we understand these are also states. When I talk about Punjab and all, Haryana, Punjab, comparatively rainfall come hai, but still productivity is so high. Why productivity is high? Because they have got well-planned method of irrigation. Now let us very well move on to the next set of questions. Likho fatafat. Name 2 micronutrient. Complete karo fast. Name 2 micronutrient. Fatafat complete karna hai. Or else you do one thing, write these 3 questions, you will do this as homework, we'll complete the next section of the chapter. Let me explain you. After that, we can do the questions next class. Take these questions, ye homework karna. Take these 3 questions, write as homework, complete as homework, and let us move on to the next section now. Done? We now talk about some cropping patterns. What are some cropping patterns? Let us try understanding cropping patterns and how are they beneficial. Next is, here we are talking about certain basic cropping patterns, something like this. I talk about mixed cropping. What do you understand by this? Mixed cropping. Here, I may talk about a farmland. Say, suppose I talk about a farmland here. And in this farmland, here I talk about growing a type of a crop, something like this. But they must more or less favorable to grow in the same season. Can I divide the farmland into 4 sections or 5 sections where I want to grow together at the same season? I want to grow the pea and the cotton and the wheat and the mango. Possible? No, these are different type of crops growing in different season. So I have to choose 3 to 4 types of crops which come in the same season. I have to choose 3 to 4 types of crops which have different type of nutrient requirement. The type of nutrient requirement the type of nutrient requirement should not be the same. For example, I talk about in one plot of the land I am trying to grow cabbage. In another plot of the land I am trying to grow potatoes, and in another one I try to grow brinjal. Yes, these 3 more or less comes in the same season. But I also am sure that cabbage and brinjal and potato, they have got different nutrient requirements. What is the meaning of that? Meaning of this is every particular type, ऐसे तो सारे plants को nitrogen and phosphorus का बहुत जरूरत होता है. But apart from that, every single plant has got some specific nutrient requirement. Something like this, I may understand that cabbage has got, apart from nitrogen and phosphorus, it requires large amount of calcium. What about brinjal? It requires large amount of nitrogen and quite an adequate amount of zinc it requires, and quite an adequate amount of magnesium it requires. But at the same time, for potato, I understand it requires nitrogen also, it requires phosphorus also, it requires some potassium also, and it requires some manganese also. Can I grow all of this together? Yes, more or less I can, because some basic nutrient requirements to same hi rahega. Apart from there, their nutrient requirements are almost the, are not exactly same, but they are different. But I have started growing some other type of a plant in the same land, and I see that they are requiring this nitrogen also, and calcium also, and zinc also. Then this will not be a very good choice for me. Growing lettuce in the same land preferably will not be a very good choice for me, because I already have another type of a plant with similar nutrient requirements. I have to choose 3-4 types of plants in the same land which has got different nutrient requirements. Kyun? Because soil में तो ये सारे nutrients already है, and if I choose 5 plants or 4 plants of the same nutrient requirement, then what will be the disadvantage? Disadvantage ये होगा कि each of these, both the lettuce and the cabbage will compete for calcium. So calcium deficiency हो जाएगा in these 2 plants, because whatever amount of calcium is there, if it goes to one plant, then this plant grows maximum. तो अभी क्या हो रहा है? दोनों plant में ही calcium is getting distributed, दोनों plant में ही zinc is getting distributed. So इसमें one of the plant will get more and one of the plant will get lesser. So that particular plant will grow much lesser. So that we don't want. So now, if we are given the concept of farming, maybe we are not a correct person to do it, but the plant breeders or the farmers, they are very well versed कौन से plant के साथ कौन से plant को grow करना है, because they very much know which type of nutrient. But can you tell me what is the, why they have to think of such equations? Why they have to think of such equation कि brinjal के साथ lettuce को grow नहीं करना है? Because all the nutrient of the soil should be used up. That is what they want. Soil में nutrient is enough. So why not grow different type of plants ताकि in this 4-5 months and 6 months let all the nutrients be used up. Why are you choosing 3 plants जो एक ही type of nutrient के लिए compete कर रहा है, and the other nutrients are just going waste in this period of 6 months? Are you understanding? So now that we are talking about mixed cropping, this is the concept of mixed cropping. Select 4 or 5 types of crops in the same season. Select meaning how select? They should be on the same season and they should have different nutrient requirements. Then they can be grown together. But then how is intercropping different? अगर intercropping है, then I have to understand वही almost same concept, but एक difference इसमें ये है कि I may grow a full line of some cabbage. I am growing one full line of cabbage. Then I am keeping some canals for irrigation. Then maybe I am growing some lines of cauliflower. I am growing some lines of cauliflower like this. Understanding? I am growing some lines of cauliflower. Then keep some canals for irrigation. Then I may grow some plants like the beans I am trying to grow here. So what is happening here? The plants are grown in a regular sequence, keeping in mind that any 2 plants or on either side of the canal or in 2 separate lines, 2 distinct lines, we basically don't grow the same type of crop. इसमें cabbage, तो इसमें cauliflower, तो इसमें bean, तो इसमें pea. Again, the types of plants should be all of the same season. The types of plants should be of different nutrient requirements, but generally try to grow one line of one type of plant, second line of different, third line of different, fourth line of different. इसमें advantage 2 है. Number 1, the breeder is trying to grow 4 types of crops in the 6 months. The breeder is trying to grow 4 types of crops in the 6 months, and his idea is if this land gets infested by certain pest, if the land gets infested by certain pest, शायद एक तरह का crop अगर पूरा destroy भी हो जाता है, because every type of plant is very specific to their pest. Any pest, I talk about a particular type of worm, can it infect all the 4 plants? No, only one. Plants and their pests are very specific. एक ही तरह का worm cannot infect all the types of plants. So by chance कोई bacteria है, कोई fungus है, कोई worm है, has started growing in the soil, it can damage only one type of a crop. And even if this goes to this land, it will not be effective and successful in destroying his second crop. So the farmer, at least at the end of 5 months, even one of his crop is fully destroyed, he has still another 2 types to sell. So ये एक benefit है. So what is the first benefit I am talking about? That if at all one type of crop is lost due to pest infection, other 2-3 types is there. So the farmer is not at a complete productivity loss. Second, again I am trying to understand that all the nutrients of the land is used up, because this will have maybe one type of nutrient requirement, calcium, magnesium and nitrogen, phosphorus, magnesium and potassium. So different nutrients are used up. Another best method that the farmers and the breeders say is that this is the land. Why to grow 3-4 types of crops together? At the most you can grow 2 types of crops of similar type of characteristics, different nutrient capacities. So maybe I am talking about grow cabbage here and grow cauliflower here. Wait for 4 months, 5 months, complete productivity you get. Harvest हो गया. अभी harvest के बाद, am I supposed to start again for the next winter crops now that the summer is over? Harvest is already finished. Am I supposed to plant my land or immediately start sowing seeds for the winter crops like the cotton and all the fruits and oranges and etc.? No. Winter is 6 months not to grow anything, but only one type of plants to grow, either pea or beans, pea or beans all over the land. To grow only pea or beans all over the land. So in the first part of the year, I have grown some cabbages and cauliflower enough. In the second part of the year, I'm not going to grow any other crop, but only this. Why? Because these type of plants, which are known as legumes or leguminous, make the soil nitrogen rich normally, naturally. So these type of plants, which are leguminous plants, they have got the capacity of fixing atmospheric nitrogen and converting the atmospheric nitrogen to nitrates in the soil, making the soil rich in nitrates. तो एक full 4 to 5 months यही process हो रहा है. Why not? They are saying that why grow pea and this gram and lentils and beans? Why not oranges and pineapple, which are the winter fruits? Why not? Because oranges and pineapples, if you are growing, oranges and guava, if you are growing, after 5 months you are getting productivity. But is your soil naturally becoming rich with nutrients? No. Your soil is not becoming rich with nutrients. So, orange or pineapple grow करने से तो अच्छा है grow pea, grow beans. तो एक तो तुमको productivity भी मिल रहा है, you are getting adequate amount of productivity also by the month of January, February, because these are winter, dry season crops. So you are getting adequate amount of productivity also, and productivity के साथ-साथ your soil is becoming rich with nitrogen and you are ready for the next season. You are ready for the next season without using any fertilizer. So they say that crop rotation, when we are talking about crop rotation, is always the best method of cropping. What is this? This is known as crop rotation. What is the meaning of rotation here? After every type of crop, meaning for the first 6 months you grow one type of crop, in the next 5 months, 6 months of the year, grow pea and beans. Then again, the next season, you may grow brinjal and potatoes. After that, you grow again pea and beans. So, हर एक cycle of agriculture के बाद, every harvest के बाद, grow pea and beans and pulses. All these type of leguminous plants grow करना है. That is what is known as crop rotation. In your volume, take all those points which are very, very important that you'll have to remember. देखो, crop combination. For example, which type of crops can be grown? For example, wheat is grown in any particular land, and it would take away a lot of nitrogen, and it will make the soil deficient of nitrogen. So this can be followed by leguminous. Underline the word leguminous. What are examples of leguminous? Pea, bean, pulses. All these are leguminous. Example, groundnut, all these. So that the soil again becomes rich in nitrogen, and this may be further followed by cereal crops. What is the meaning of cereal? Cereal matlab? Pulses. Like arhar hai, moong hai, masoor hai, etc. Cereals, and again followed by leguminous. So now again we are talking about different type of leguminous. So now what is the method crop rotation after growing any type of crop? Followed by leguminous. Any part of the entire year, 2 types of farming you have to do. Half of the year, if you are growing cabbage and cauliflower, next part of the year, what are you growing? Pea and gram. Next year, half of the year, if you are growing mangoes and guavas, next part of the year, what are you growing? Again, cereals and gram. Something very common. One part of the year you are growing a type of a crop, and the next part of the year you are growing only legumes. What is the most important benefit? Making the soil naturally rich in nitrogen. Take those advantages that you are going to read. Next is when we are talking about protection. Now that the farmer got adequate productivity, so much of grain, so much of cabbages, so much of cauliflower, brinjal, so much of crops he has got. But if he doesn't know how to protect them together, is he not suffering from losses? He will suffer from loss. Now, in order to protect himself from all those losses, prevent those losses, what should he do? Number one, he should be very much aware about the different type of pesticides when the plants are growing on the land. Spray some of the other pesticides so that if at all any of the plants are affected, they will die off. Pesticides. But pesticides have got harmful effects. What is that? Pesticides are harmful chemicals. They get dissolved in the soil water, and they are absorbed into the plant. And now that we are eating the plant product in the form of the seed or the grain or the fruit, we are also consuming pesticide to small fraction. Weed control. What is the meaning of the word weed? Unwanted plants. Weed. When we are talking, wheat is a type of a grain, and I'm talking about weed now. What is a weed? Weeds are they lead to wastage of crops. But what is the meaning of the word weed? Weeds are unwanted plants. So even in the flower pots that we have in our windowsill, there also we always observe. What is?
It's illegal.
Your brain is becoming illegal. What are you thinking of? Where is weed illegal? You are talking about the weed. Drugs, weed. You have gone a long way.
Unwanted plants से ही बनता है.
No, weed is a different type of a plant altogether. Marijuana and all. These are different types.
So
These are different types.
Kind of
These weeds are any type of a plant that you can talk about, which are grown anywhere.
like we put them in plant.
Kuch bhi. But that you try smoking, you will not get any effect. Stupid boy. Now, when we are talking about this weed, that is literally that term used in the concept of drug. That's absolutely different, a concept that you understand. Where there are a specific type of a plant which releases certain toxicating chemicals. Now that's different when we are talking about, but yes, the word is the same. When we are talking about weed, what is the definition? Unwanted plants. Now, what is the problem? I talk about the flower plants that we have in our house. And if at all you have observed that the moment these weeds come, and especially in the monsoon time, because the water is sufficient and so many weeds come up. Now that the weeds come up, is the actual plant showing its adequate amount of vigor and growth? No, because the weeds are taking up so much of nutrient from the soil. The weeds are competing with the main plant for the process of nourishment. Say suppose now you are only one in your house, only one child in the house, or at the most you have got a sister or a brother, and you have got enough amount of space in the house, so much of toys and adequate food and dresses. But tomorrow maybe your cousin drops in, whom you don't like that much, and that cousin is taking away all your toys and all your dresses and all your good food. You will like it or you will not like it. Preferably you will not like it. Preferably will not like it. So what is happening? Because whenever there's a competition happening, one will get benefit, the other will be at a loss. So same is happening here. When we are talking about the weeds, now that they start growing, what we should do? Immediately uproot them, throw them away. Why? Because they are going to disturb the growth of the main plant. Tick the disadvantages of weed control. Weed control ka disadvantages tick karo. What are you supposed to write? Just what I explained you just now. Next is when we are talking about the insect pest. What is the meaning of insect pest? What can be some of the examples of insect pest? Cockroaches, rats, rodents. So now, quite often we come across ये जो big warehouses होता है, where the grains are stored, crops are stored, fruits are stored, and from time to time they are released and they go to the market. In those warehouses, they have to take extra care. Say suppose even in our own homes, in our kitchen, in our store, those small quantity of rice and dal and etc. that we store, that also we try to put it in a proper care, that there should not be any insects, any fungal infection, nothing like it. And here we are talking about storing only 10 kilo, 20 kilo rice, not more than that. Think about the warehouses in quintals they are storing. Huge quantities they are storing. So they have to take proper care. No fungal infection, no bacterial infection, no pests, no insects, no rodents, all these. Tick till there, insect pairs will continue again from there and complete these questions as homework. No, your portion for your exam, what exam you said?
October 7th.
October
Tissues for this.
October 7th. This late. Getting over by? So for you, portion is all updated.
नहीं ज़्यादा है बायो में 2 है केमिस्ट्री में 2 है फिजिक्स में 3 है
फिजिक्स में 3 है
3 है
फिजिक्स में न्यूमेरिकल
इजी है
न्यूमेरिकल्स उसको आते हैं मेरे साथ फॉरवर्ड नहीं कॉलिंग
हाँ, जब अकेले थे
नहीं आ रहा है